Hi, I'm Alex McClintock. I wanted to do a short talk about data lakes, and then I realised I have to talk about data warehouses before I can really explain the differences between them and data lakes. I also will talk about how things have surpassed data lakes later on. So, what is a data warehouse? Well, a data warehouse is a type of database that collates information from a number of other operational databases and is structured to allow for business reporting on that information. There are two main types of database. One is the OLTP, Online Transactional Processing, and that's the normal database that you'll see running most of your business, most of your operational business. And these are typically RDBMS, relational databases that do SQL, but they also might be something called NoSQL, which is a simple key value store, or even document or object stores. In either case, they're great at fetching individual records and saving them away again. But what about reporting and analytics? Well, in those cases, you need to read and process huge amounts of data at once. Traditional databases just don't like that. They don't like it when you read or scan whole tables. And that's something you do need to do for reporting. Also, organisations quite often have several operational databases that they need to do reporting on at once. And that's where you want to combine them into a single OLAP database, Online Analytical Processing. Now, the first type of OLAP databases were called data warehouses. So, what's the workflow? We've got two workflows, the how do we get stuff into the database, the data warehouse, and how to get stuff out of it. So, a data warehouse needs to have a schema designed for it straight away, and that's informed by what sort of reporting needs to be done and what sort of data needs to be stored. And data needs to be ingested into those tables with what's typically known as an ETL process, an extract, transform, load process. And the records that are saved are typically always saved new, as in you have the history of those records all the time. You don't necessarily overwrite old records. This ingestion is not that simple and quite often needed experts in this ETL engineering, and this was perhaps a forerunner to what's more modernly known as data engineering. Now, what about getting data out of the data warehouse? Well, typically what happened is that a data warehouse gave you an interface for what's known as business intelligence tools or data visualization tools. Those are things like Power BI, Click, Tableau, many other tools for that sort of thing. And usually what's happening is that over time, business people were given the ability to produce their own graphs and reports. Historically, that was always done by the engineers. Now, typically, this sort of reporting is done on important data like sales, and it's broken down into dimensions like perhaps salesperson or branch or town, and these things are changed depending on what sort of reports are required. And these reports are typically done daily, but sometimes monthly, yearly, or some other grouping that makes sense. So, what's the limitations of a data warehouse? Well, you have to know what reports are needed in advance. I've hinted that you have to create your schema upfront, and it's not terribly easy to change that. Because they're so difficult to change, data warehouses got the reputation of being expensive as well as difficult to maintain and inflexible. So the other part of it is that a data warehouse typically was a big database that ran on a single machine. Now, that's not always been the case. After a while, people learned how to do these sorts of databases on multiple processors, multiple computers, but they're still not terribly scalable for doing huge numbers of machines. Maybe that's changing, and typically this is changing a lot more with the use of cloud-based data warehouses, which are run by other organizations rather than installing to your own. So that's the situation we were in about 10 years ago, when data lakes became popular, and the idea was to basically be more flexible, provide more scalability, and perhaps be easier to use. So more about data lakes later. Thank you.